Alright, let's get to creating our game. First thing that we need to talk about is project structure. So inside of your project directory, you're going to need to create a few subdirectories. The first one is an assets directory that also contains audio, fonts, and images subdirectories. We will also create a JS directory that contains a game directory that also contains a prefabs and states subdirectory. Also inside of the JS directory, we will need to create a library directory. And inside of that, we're going to put our Phaser framework. To get the Phaser framework, you'll need to go to phaser.io, click the Download and Get Started button, and either copy the phaser.js file from the build directory into your library directory, or download the entire framework as a zip file, extract it, and then pull the phaser.js file out of the build directory and drop it into your library directory, as you can see that I have done here. The next thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create an index.html page to display our game. So go ahead and create the new file underneath your base project directory, call it index.html, and then we'll need to drop some code in. Now, I've got some boilerplate code here that I'm just copying in, and I will run you through exactly what we're going to do here. So the first two lines underneath the title are to make sure that the game runs properly in Apple's mobile browsers. Make sure it's full screen and that kind of thing. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to include the Phaser library. This has to be the first thing that you do. I've also added in places here, just placeholders, for our game states and prefabs, which we will get to in a little while. We also need a style that simply takes away all the padding and margin off of the body. Some browsers add this by default. We just want to make sure everything displays properly. And then we have, inside of the body, a placeholder for our main game file. Now we need to go ahead and create that underneath the JS directory. So if you create a new file, call it main.js, and what main.js is going to do is simply create an instance of our game for us. So let's go ahead and create a global variable called game and set it equal to a new instance of phaser.game. Now, phaser.game takes a number of parameters, and the four that we're concerned with is the width of the game, the height of the game, the renderer to use, and where to place it on the page. Now, because we want our game to be the full width and height of the screen, we're going to give the width a window.inner width, and the same thing for height, except inner height, window.inner height. And we're going to, as for the renderer, which is the third argument here, we're going to let Phaser decide what to use. Phaser has both the ability to render to the canvas as well as WebGL. If the device runs WebGL, then we're going to use WebGL. Otherwise, we're going to fail gracefully back to the canvas. And then we're going to decide where to place the game. Generally speaking, you can add an ID here. So if you had a game that had other content on the page, you would pass in an element ID. However, Phaser has the ability to just place everything in the body, and that's what we want to do because, again, there's not going to be anything on the page other than this. So if we jump back over to index.html, we can place our game's file here where we have the placeholder for it. So if you add a script with a source of js/main.js, and go ahead and save the page, and jump over to your web browser and look at your local host, you should see a big black screen. And what that big black screen is Phaser saying, I have initiated. If you look at your console, I'm using Chrome, you will see that Phaser 2.03 has been initiated with WebGL because I am using Chrome and Chrome has WebGL, and we'll be using the Web Audio API. That is hidden from us. We don't, both WebGL and Web Audio does not concern us. The code will be the same whether we're using WebGL or Canvas, or the same if we're using Web Audio or the built-in audio capabilities of the browser. So, there we go. Everything is set up and we are on our way to writing a game.